college is an investment. So, I think typically when we think about like stocks and bonds, yes, those are investments, but college is just as much of an investment as those things as well, because you're investing in your future.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to YBI, where we talk about financial ways to better yourself and your financial selves. We got Roman and Zion here with a special guest today. We're going over the 2 to 4 year route today. Zion, who we got with us?
We have somebody that has done the 2 to 4 year route herself. One of my good friends for the longest time. There's just so much that she does, which we're gonna have to get into today. But one of my dear friends, Danielle Derrick, is here in the building. What's going on, girl?
Hey, how are you?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Could not be happier to have you on. I mean, I know that you're one of the few people that was smart enough to do the 2 year to 4 year route. All the rest of us decided that we wanted as much debt as possible. So we just went the 4 year route. So tell us a little bit about your background, because we know a little bit about you, and you be working and now you have multiple streams of income and all of these other things. But tell us a little bit about your background.
So I'm originally from Chicago, or the Chicagoland area. Me and Zion actually kind of grew up in the same area. So I'm a recent college graduate of the Ohio State University, and I currently work as a pharmaceutical sales rep in the northeastern Ohio area. And as Zion just mentioned, I have a couple other businesses and looking to, expand my stream of income. But that's pretty much it. I just, I also work with the community, and I try to make sure that people that come behind me and that are looking to also get into the pharmaceutical industry, I mentor people as well. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Got you. Got you. So before you went to the Ohio State University, how did you get into the collegiate route in general?
Absolutely. So I actually decided to go to a 2 year institution before going off to a 4 year institution. And that was due to a couple of reasons. So, one, Ohio State was always my dream school. Unfortunately, when I was coming out of high school, I did not get accepted. And so I had got accepted into another university, which was Wright State University. It's another school in Ohio. And honestly, I just did not feel like I was ready maturity wise and also financially. So as we know, like the first year or two of college, you're pretty much taking a lot of gen eds, a lot of basic classes until you start to get into your major. And so knowing that, I was like, well, rather than spending a lot of money at a 4 year institution trying to figure out what it is that I want to do, what it is my major was going to be, I can actually go ahead and knock those classes out at a much more cost-effective option, and as well as saving money on room and board and food. When you're living at home, that stuff is taken care of. So it definitely was also a big financial success for me as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that that's one of the biggest points, as when you're coming out of high school, it's super hard for an 18-year-old to say, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? So going immediately into debt at a 4 year university without the understanding of this is exactly what I want to do, this is a career path, or generally this is a career path that I want, because not all schools offer the same majors. So you have to also look at, what is it that you're really trying to do with the rest of your life, and putting all of that pressure on an 18-year-old is messed up. Which is why, going to a school that is, a community college or a smaller institution that is going to be more an in-state institution, those are all going to be options that are going to be more financially savvy for somebody that is trying to make a move like that. So kudos to you, because Roman and I just said, hey, if we could do it over again, that's what we would do. It just makes more financial sense. So you had a lot less debt in going those routes than both Roman and I did, and I couldn't do it. But you were able to see, what, I just wasn't mature enough to be at that position. So I think that that's something that people are going to have to recognize if they're trying to make that decision.
What are some successes you've had financially, such educationally, because of the route you took?
Yes, so I have I would say I almost cut my four-year institution loans in half by just going the two-year route first. So by being able to pay for all of my community classes out of pocket, I had no out of pocket my first 2 years. I saved a lot of money. In addition to that, I was working full time while also being a full-time student at a two-year institution. So not only was debt free my first 2 years, but I had money going into my four-year institution. And because my grades were good coming out of the two-year college, I was offered a lot more, scholarships and that sort of thing and grants. So that cut my loans in half at my four-year institution. So financially, it was the best decision that I could have ever made.
What are some of the misconceptions that you feel like were surrounding, a smaller school or a community college at the time when you were applying?
Absolutely. So I feel like a lot of people automatically think that by going to a community college, you aren't smart enough to get into a 4 year, or, it's for the people who, just don't have any path or, any motivation in life. And that's just not the case. So once we can kind of get away from that stigma, I think it would be actually very beneficial for a lot more people to actually just go and, get that experience first. Like, hey, even though you're at a community college and technically you're still living at home if that's what you choose to do, you're still having to plan your classes, you're still taking collegiate classes. And so I think some of the misconceptions is just that, or community college classes are a lot easier and they don't challenge you. Let me tell you, I definitely did struggle with a couple of my of classes at that community college. And it prepared me, already by going to a great high school in the Chicagoland area, but just having a couple of collegiate classes before I actually got to a four-year institution, it prepared me like, okay, this is kind of the workload. This is how I organize my classes. This is how I make sure I make it on time to class and study for my finals and that sort of thing. So I think that just by allowing me to have that little bit of cushion with the two-year institution, by the time I was at a four-year institution, I was a little bit more prepared, I feel like, than just your 18-year-old who's just thrown into the wind by being on their own automatically. So
Yeah, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially because there are so many people like that are our age that are not even using the degrees that they have because they had to make that decision so early. I think that, like you said, is an excellent decision to do something that's non-traditional. People just feel like, well, I want to go to the 4 year route. People want the white picket fence and all that stuff, but they don't really recognize what it takes to get there. So, the white picket fence comes with smart financial planning. And part of that financial planning is creating a situation where you don't have as much debt as everybody else going in and coming out of school. So, I mean, again, I would do it if I could. I couldn't. I
and
couldn't do it.
well, to your point, to me, college is an investment. So, I think typically when we think about like stocks and bonds, yes, those are investments, but college is just as much an investment as those things as well, because you're investing in your future. So when you make an investment choice, you have to think, okay, what is going to be the return on my initial investment? And you want to get the most out of your investment. You want to buy low and sell high. So when you can
Yeah.
spend have a lower initial cost, that saves you in the long run. So when I talk to some of my college friends and that sort of thing, their loans are a lot higher than mine. So, just overall, them taking 6 years at a four-year institution versus me taking two at a community college and then taking an additional four. I mean, I didn't want to take 6 years to get a degree, but that's just how it worked out. And because of that, let's just say my loans are pretty good. I just don't have a lot of out of additional loans like some people do. So
Yeah. So what she just said, to sum that up a little bit, she said, go back and watch Investment in Self. That's what she said. That's what I heard at least. But what I'm saying, like, this is an investment, and that's exactly what you're going to do. So you're going to check out Investment in Self as you should. So how did you find time to, balance having three jobs? I mean, I know that we've done, you and I are very similar. Like, we did this. I think Roman did it too. Like, we all were like
Mhm.
on the grind in the college life. So how did you specifically find that balance in order to do everything?
I'm not gonna lie, it was hard, and there were some times I was like, "Why am I doing this?" But I think that just time management is something that I had to learn. I had to learn very quickly. It was like, okay, so This is how you plan your work, and this is how you plan your class schedule, and this is how you add in study time, and this is how you add in social time. So I think that it just, allowed me to be super time management and super savvy with my time, that I was just able to try to balance all those. But it was definitely hard. And even when I was even when I was at the 4-year institution, I actually had a PCA job. So I was a nurse's aide, and I would work 12 hours overnight from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m., get off work, go to class at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it was not the easiest thing, but that job not only paid for my classes, but it just allowed me to kind of learn that time management. I would do my homework at work and then go to class in the morning. So it was tough, but I got through it.
Nice.
Sacrifice, man, it's crazy.
Or do you have any regrets about doing that?
The only regret probably would just be that I do not recommend getting right off of a 12-hour night shift and going straight into an 8-hour organic chemistry lecture and actually having to learn the information. It was not the smartest thing, and half the time I do not even remember what was said in class, but I managed to somehow pass that class. But like I said, financially, when I was so pretty much I was an employee of the university when I was taking that when I was working as a nurse aide. So all my classes were paid for. They were giving me money back to go to school. So like I said, just being financially savvy, and then also when I was at a community college, by me working or being, living at home, I was able to work. I didn't have any bills that I needed to pay. And then I would just schedule my classes around my work schedule and just make sure that I was able to balance the two, that, one was not lacking.
This is a very interesting point, because this is probably the third way that we've seen during this series in how to have school paid for. We've looked at the scholarships, we looked at the grants and the different opportunities that people have. Now I'm in a GA position. So as a graduate assistant, I'm technically working the same way that you were, but you were working in a hospital type setting. I'm working as a coach. Everybody knows that as a coach, you're going to get paid to go to school, but as an assistant in a hospital for the university, that's another way that school is being paid for people. So you have to be creative in the ways that you are going to try to get school paid for. There are a lot of opportunities. As we spoke with Dr. Magic, he talked a lot about the military and what they can do to pay for your schooling as well. So there are a lot of opportunities. It just depends on what you are willing to do to get that money. So what are some of the sacrifices that you feel like you had to make, either financially or educationally, because of the 2-year to 4-year route?
Absolutely. So some of the sacrifices primarily were on the social level, not so much as the financial level. So it was such a good financial decision, like I said, because, I could literally pay each semester that I was going to community college out of pocket, by not having to take out any loans or anything like that. So the financial thing was probably the most beneficial. However, I did kind of, have a little bit of struggling with social issues, or not social issues, but, seeing my friends go off to college and they were on their own and they didn't have a curfew anymore. And, they were going to parties and I'm still stuck, at home with my mom. So it definitely was a sacrifice that I had to make, but it was worth it in the end, because I could endure 2 more years in order to get me to that next level. And like I said, because I just took a variety of different classes, such as, I took business law, I took chemistry, I took, physics, things that I was going to end up taking at a 4-year institution, or, get those gen eds out of the way. That just allowed me to do that at a community college. So I didn't really, have any sacrifices financially. I was still able to work during that 2-year span, which allowed me to save a lot of money. Like I said, I was living at home. I did not have to pay rent, luckily. So all that money that I had used, or I had, saved while I was at that 2-year institution, by the time I got to Ohio State, I wasn't technically the broke college kid. I had a little bit of money saved. And then also, because I had that work-life balance at a 2-year institution, I also knew how to do that while I was at Ohio State. So I continued to work. I think at one point at Ohio State, I had 3 jobs that I was working while being a full-time student. So I don't recommend that, but it is something that it just taught me that, work and school life balance, that I was able to juggle both and learn how to keep my grades up, and as well as work those jobs as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much what you're saying is that there is no financial sacrifice that you have to make. There is like you said, that there's an investment. And at the end of the day, there's so much more that you can do by staying at home, by not having to pay for room and board, by not having to pay for food all the time, by, the sacrifice, like you said, was social. And I think that that's okay. We have to endure different sacrifices if you want to be successful. That's what's going to have to happen. So I think that that's, again, something that you're going to have to make a decision on. Yes, watching your friends go away, it can be hard, it can suck. But at the same time, when you come out of school and you are making just as much as they are, but you have like half of their debt, you just feel a lot better. And then you can purchase your first home before they can. And then, so it's a sacrifice of 2 years that's going to set you up for the rest of your life. So I think that that's amazing. So how do you feel the quality of, because I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like the quality of the community college was a lot less, a lot less, pretty much. So do you have that same feeling that the community college didn't really give you the same type of, quality education that the four-year university did, or do you feel like it was pretty even?
So that's a little bit of a difficult question. The reason I say that is because I was primarily taking a lot of education classes while I was at a community college, and I got into some of my classes at a four-year institution. Now, with that being said, I do feel like some of the community classes were a little bit easier. So there was a time that I did feel like, hey, if I pass this class at, this community college over here, I'm going to be good over here. And that just was not the case. So that is something to be aware of, is that community college typically do sometimes tailor the classes to be just a little bit easier, or, a little bit less challenging than some of the four-year institutions. So just keep that in mind. But other than
let me right here. I'm sorry. I went to a four-year university before I went to North Central.
Mhm.
And I don't want the stigma to be that the community college was easier, because I went to a four-year university and I took like 6 classes, which is ridiculous. Like, you're only supposed to have like 4, maybe 5. I took 6 or 7. I took a lot. And I had a 4.0. I didn't purchase a single book. The quality of the education that I was receiving at that university, then when I tried to transfer, was not the same. So it's not even that it's just the community college versus the four-year. It's that they're different. The four-year university, if it doesn't have the same quality education as the private school that I was at, none of the classes that I had taken, none of them had transferable knowledge. The classes themselves transferred, but I went from Calc 1 into what should be Calc 2. But no, was not the same thing, at all. We did not hit the same things in my original class that I hit in the secondary class. So it can just be transferring from school to school, not just from a community college into a four-year university. So it's obviously Danielle is speaking from her personal experience. I'm just speaking from mine. So it's not always the community college that's just easier. There can be four-year universities that are just easier. So be aware of the fact that when you're transferring, it may not be all, apples to apples. There may be an orange in there somewhere. So just be aware of that when you're making that decision as to, if I'm going to switch schools, will all of the knowledge that I have to this point be exactly, comparable to where I'm going. So.
And see, to your point, Zion, too, I think that goes back to us talking about the investment and knowing what you're investing in, right? So, if I'm going to research a stock, I'm going to make sure that that stock is going to give me the best return on my investment. So that is the same with college. Like you said, all four-year institutions are not built the same, unfortunately. It's fortunate and unfortunately at the same time, right? So that's when you're thinking about going into a four-year institution, you want to, do your research and say, hey, if I want to go into this biology program or this psychology program, let me research the program at this school. Is the school nationally ranked? what are people saying about this program? What are their graduates doing? Are their graduates getting jobs? So that goes back to just that initial investment by saying, hey, because I'm coming from point A to point B, that doesn't automatically mean the classes are going to be harder or less hard or anything like that. I have had friends who have went to, like you said, four-year institutions, and I will look at their classwork and look at mine and be like, we did this like the first or second year, it's just, it is a difference. So I'm glad that you cleared that up, because I don't want people to think, oh, automatically that community college is it's easier, you're going to pass all your classes. No, that is not the case. It depends on the community college, it depends on the four-year college, it depends on the class that you're taking and the program at that college. So when you're thinking about that step, just keep all those things in mind. Research your investment, definitely, and then
Absolutely.
make the best decision based on that. Yep.
Okay. So then what are some books, podcasts, YouTube channels, etc. you would recommend for yourself that you already use and for other people to kind of get more financial and educational knowledge?
Absolutely. Well, this podcast right here is definitely one of my faves. I love that we talk about, investing and finances, because that's something that is super passionate, or something that I'm very passionate about. So I love you all's podcast. I think you all do a great job. Another one that I listen to, which is also a financial podcast, is Earn Your Leisure. They have a YouTube channel. They also have a podcast. They talk a lot about investing and that sort of thing. And they talk about multiple streams of income, which is something that I look into, build additional streams of income. So I feel like this podcast and that one are two of my faves.
Got you. How do you keep yourself motivated? Songs, books, anything? Like, what do you do to, there's so much that goes on in our world. What do you do to just keep yourself driven?
So I think a lot of it is that you have to have, just that personal hustle. And I think that, Zion, we talked about it, and we just having multiple jobs and just hustling is something that I think you have to have within you. And then I also do, look at what people have come before me and say, hey, the other people and older people have made these mistakes so that I don't make these same mistakes. I look at their financial situations and I say, hey, is that something that you want to end up in the future? And not to downgrade them or, think badly about them. It's just that if somebody else comes before you and they can give you that advice, you don't want to make that same mistake. So by learning that, I say, hey, this is how I'm going to set myself up now, so that in my future, I'm good. I don't have to worry about, living paycheck to paycheck or, that sort of thing that could be a potential issue.
I like to see that drive and that hustle from a different point of view, because I feel like that's where a lot of students are actually at. And some students feel like they can't do that because they have to just be in school and not be able to work or do anything else and at the same time. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I think that, we had the perfect person come on. And we'll wrap it up with this final question. What do you think would be the best advice for either your younger self or for people that are trying to make the decision for the 2-year or 4-year route?
So my advice would be to, once again, research your investment and also know yourself. So as I previously mentioned, I knew for myself, I didn't know what I wanted my major to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I also was not mature enough to be able to go off to a 4-year institute and just jump right in. So think about it, really think about who you are as a person. If you know what you want to do for the rest of your life, just research everything and make sure that you make the best decision for you personally as well as financially. So that's the advice that I can give.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is the best place to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Again, we want to thank you, Danielle, for coming through. We appreciate the time. We know that you got appointments to go to get into
Air
for the rest
quotes.
of the day. Yeah, she's going to get them nails done. You want to show them again? Did you want to show them again? Or you?
No, I'm good.
All right. All right. Yeah, just thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you. And we are going to wrap it up from there. Roman, take us out.
We may be young, we may be broke, but we are always investing.
Always investing. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey everybody, thank you for listening to Young Broken Investing. We just want to let you know that these are the opinions of the hosts, are not meant to be the basis of any security purchases or investments. We're trying to give a little information out there for everybody, and have fun and be safe.